The men are still getting their heads around the fact that women can race 180K, and some women don't necessarily want to. I mean, 150 is fine, but it doesn't have to be 80 or 100K. That's not the maximum. Next year, the Tour de France will be up to 9 days, and maybe it'll plateau off at 10 for a few years to see how things go. But they definitely need to get over their fear of adding, more climbing. Even after the success of the women in the Tourmalet last year, one of the organizers came up to me and said, yeah, when you came to see us about the tour, you said keep giving them 3,000 to 4,000 meters. But look, the last rider was 30 minutes down. I'm like, dude, the men have been racing the tour for 40 years and the last rider is way more than 40 minutes down. And yes, it's a longer event, longer stages, but still, I mean, it's the same. I mean, when you see a race, like the Tour de France or Giro this year, totally dominated by one rider, they used to bitch and moan when that happened in the women's races and saying, oh, it wasn't fun, it wasn't exciting because only one racer dominated. Well, yeah, I mean, frankly, I didn't watch much of the Tour this year. I was happy that it was Pogacar and I love watching him race, but I just didn't find it all that exciting. Whereas the women's race, I think, will be a lot different.
Welcome to Ride Success, the podcast that takes you on a learning journey to a more productive, creative, and active life through the power of the bike. In the podcast, I explore cycling's global trends, community needs, innovative business strategies, and the journeys of remarkable individuals in the world of cycling. As the Paris Olympics are happening, we have an extraordinary guest, Marion Clignet, former Olympic medalist. Marion is a world-renowned cycling champion with an inspiring story. She was diagnosed with epilepsy at 22. She defied expectations and rose to the pinnacle of cycling. Representing France, Marion won 2 Olympic silver medals in the individual pursuit, one at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics and another at the 2000 Sydney Olympics. Her perseverance and dedication have made her a role model in the sports community. Beyond her competitive achievements, Marion transitioned into entrepreneurship, founding Jelenew, a luxury high-performance women's sports brand. She leveraged her extensive cycling experience and she has innovated in the women's cycling apparel by focusing on performance and aesthetics. Also, in a recent honor, Marion carried the Olympic flame at the Haute-Pyrénées stage on May 19, 2024. This event celebrated outstanding female athletes and the spirit of sports. So join me in this learning journey as I delve into Marion's inspiring journey from athlete to entrepreneur and their relentless advocacy for women's sports and their vision for the future of cycling. But before we get into the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, I have a huge favor to ask you. Through looking at the analytics of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, I've noticed that 70% of you that listen to the podcast are not following it. So my request to you is, if you like what you listen, please give us a follow. It helps me to continue to bring you original content and grow the podcast. Now, back to the podcast. Welcome, Marion, to Ride Success. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Virtually.
Indeed. So, as the Paris Olympics are happening, I wanted to start with a bit of a trivia. Fun fact about you. You come from a distant lineage where you are the 54th great-granddaughter of Roman Emperor Theodosius I, who famously abolished the ancient Olympic Games in 393 AD.
Really? I had no idea. You're going to have to teach me about this. Who is this, my 54th grandfather?
Yes, so the Roman Emperor Theodosius I.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a bit of trivia about you. And funnily enough, obviously, you are an Olympic medalist. You have recently carried the Olympic flame to celebrate the outstanding female athletes and the spirit of sports. So it's just a great fact that you can throw around in a party.
Yeah, I will try
that. With that said, I want to rewind the clock a little bit for you to take us, if you will, to the moment that kind of changed your life, where you started to see cycling as a potential for a career. For the people that don't know you, can you describe that moment and how did it change your life?
So for me, the problem during my generation was that cycling wasn't officially considered a profession. It was still an amateur sport for women. Women weren't actually professional until 2020 when the World Tour was created. And today there will even be a second division, the UCI Pro Series teams,
Yes, that's
which will
correct.
replace the UCI Conti teams as professional teams. They'll have a lower salary imposed, but they will have a salary. So during my generation, it was really all about scraping by and a quest for survival. I raced out of passion. I raced because I had epilepsy. And I was told I shouldn't do sport. I shouldn't talk about epilepsy because it was taboo, that I was going to have to take medication for the rest of my life. And I wanted to prove the neurologist who diagnosed me different. Just kind of wanted, she told me I couldn't do all this. And I was like, really? Fuck you. Watch me. That became my mission, was to prove her wrong, to show her that sport was definitely beneficial to any sort of condition, especially for your health. I mean, for your overall health. It just made more sense to me that I should be doing sport to oxygenate my brain and maybe help lower the side effects of whatever medication I had to take for epilepsy as well. So I think it was pretty much the moment I received the diagnosis that I was given a challenge by someone telling me, you can't do this. And I was like, yeah, well, you don't know who you're talking to. And I felt right then, it was like, God, who are these people trying to piss me off? They've hit the wrong person. And I mean, that was, I don't know if I'd react the same way today because of all, I've been through, but that definitely hit a spark, we'll say. It started a first spark.
Well, yeah, shows how tenacious you were. A little bit of rebelliousness that perhaps you still carry today, till this day.
Yeah. I still still have that. No matter how hard I try, I still have that.
Well, I mean, that's what creates the character, the drive that you have, the purpose, and reflecting on your 30 odd years of as a cyclist in a cycling career, that all the accolades that you received and accomplished, that that tenaciousness and then that drive kind of was and is what defines you. So I wanted to look back at, obviously I'm not going to talk about each individual accolade and accomplishment because that would be another podcast in itself. But looking back, the participation you had in 3 Olympic Games, in multiple World Championships and many other races, how did the sport, cycling, shaped your life as an athlete, but most importantly, I think, as a person?
Well, it made me really realize how to work around obstacles, how to overcome obstacles, maybe how to turn an obstacle into an opportunity, how to correctly fight for justice, how to get things done, how to organize myself when things around me were in complete chaos, how to visualize a result, to visualize a scene that I wanted to make happen, how to bring people together. Taught me a lot about, teamwork, leadership, or, trying to really unite a group around an effort. But I think, I really think the big thing was that it gave me the drive to push for what I wanted. And what I wanted most was equality. I wanted for us to be able to race Paris-Roubaix, to ride the Tour de France, to get paid for what we were doing, to have some sort of health insurance, just to make sure that things were fair for women. In 1991, I won my first world title in the team time trial with the French team. The men were 6th or 8th, I can't remember. They got 10,000 francs each. We got 10,000 francs to split amongst us. And we were the first and only French team to win the team time trial. The next year, the boys also had the new monocoque bikes it was the first time this aero mold came out for a time trial bike by Look. And we were on the same, steel tube frames. And so the next year I didn't ride it, kind of in a protest. I mean, the training camp we did to prepare those worlds was by far one of the hardest camps I've ever done, and it was intense, but we rode our hearts out, and it was kind of a slap in the face when I saw, that, well, okay, let's give the boys 10,000 each for coming in sixth, and we'll give the girls, that much to split. So from there on, I was like, no, this can't go on. I mean, I trained with the pro men. I went to training camps with Credit Agricole, with Castorama back in the day to get ready for my seasons. And, these guys were all getting salaries, and I was there on my own terms, my own, money, my own savings. And so, yeah, I was determined to make things right for women.
I mean, that's a lot has been done, but still a lot that's been done. I mean, you touch upon a lot of things that have shaped your life. Is there any stories that kind of marked that time? I mean, you mentioned the fact that in 1992 the men were going to race with the new monochrome carbon frames, and you were still going to have to race with the old steel frames, or in the year before, the massive discrepancy in prize money. Is there any kind of behind the scene stories that you can share with us about that, a pivotal moment in your career that you went on to
yeah, in
succeed?
94, I won my first individual title at the World Championships, and Florian Rousseau won the kilo on the track. So because he was a guy, he got 50, we were still in francs, he got 50,000 francs from the federation. But because he was a male, he could also become pro. So he got 50,000 francs from the National League of Professional Riders as well. And there was no league for women. So when I went to get my envelope, it was 15,000 for the win. And I looked at it, and I just told the president that I think he forgot a few zeros, and that, I'd been the only girl in training camp for 6 weeks with the guys. I felt that I definitely deserved more, if not double of what the guys were getting. And the president refused to change the sum. So I did what you're supposed to do in France. You write this very polite letter, registered mail, sent to the president of the federation, blah, blah, blah. And I knew they wouldn't do anything. So I sent it. But at the same time, I spoke to the Minister of Sports, who just happened to be a woman. And I said, look, you've got to help, with this. I'm training for the Olympics. I want to win. I want to do this. I want to do that. But I can't do it if I'm not getting some sort of support. And the only support I'm going to get now is by these victory primes that incite me to win, so I can pay for my next season. And that's how I was living. I mean, it was really a quest to survive. It was earning money at the races to pay for the following season. And she away reacted, and the next day, worked on it with me. And it took most of the year to change. But at the end of the year, I managed to get what was missing from that victory prime. And from then on, the women got the same victory bonus as the men. So that was really nice. I mean, she really stepped in, and I think a brand stepped in too, because the federation didn't have enough money. It might have been Adidas. I mean, one of the sponsors of the federation stepped up to pay the difference. So that was nice. I mean, it was a one-off, but it was a good thing.
It kind of makes me reflect on that. Those moments are the foundation that led you to continue to advocate for women's sports, and, as you mentioned, for gender parity. I mean, you co-founded the Association Française de Coureurs.
Cyclists. Yeah.
Brilliant. You saved me from butchering the French there. Thank you. So, and with that, is the whole point of that is to support and promote women's cycling, and
really to professionalize women's cycling in France in particular, because the France has always been lagging in terms of getting things right for women, and now they're really stepping up. The federation has been more active, so we were able to get professional licenses for the French women who raced in World Tour teams. And the following year, which was last year, some of the women racing for UCI Conti teams were under the same contract as a World Tour team, meaning that they had paycheck and a contract as a bike racer. But because they weren't World Tour, we weren't able to get them professional license. So what we did was we created a league for women's sport, or a commission for women's sports with the federation, and decided the French UCI continental teams, as of this year, 2024, would have to have a certain budget so they could at least pay 10 riders minimum wage salary plus 4 staff. So they sort of were a precursor to what the UCI will do next year, which is the pro teams, kind of second division. So, it was a long drawn out battle, but it's happened and it's been good. One team dropped off because they didn't have the budget, but where there's a will, there's a way. If they really wanted to make it happen, they would have. But so it's, it's slowly progressing. We also help women, there was the whole drama of the B&B teams and then the ZAF. So we helped the girls with that. We helped find a lawyer. There's the court case going on to get the contract money paid back by an insurance for the B&B affair, and that's still ongoing. The riders who raced for ZAF were finally paid back in June, a salary that had backed up since March. So that was pretty consequential. We've helped a lot of girls with their contracts, how to read them. For the upcoming off season, I'm putting together a series of masterclasses. So there'll be kind of what I call Peloton English available for riders or people who adhere to the association. How to use social networks to create your brand, your image, talk about your sponsors, etc. So there'll be somebody who's pretty on top of it in communications, taking care of that. Also, how to give an interview right at the finish line when it's kind of the last thing you want to do if the race went to shit and you really want to tell the journalist to fuck off more than you would want to answer questions politely and upbeat. You've got to learn how to bite your tongue and do that. We're also going to have a masterclass on how to read your contract. Make sure you look at the pregnancy clause, the insurance. Do you need an agent? What's the plus? What's the minus? We're just going to go into all of that. And then a fiscal part on taxes. Taxes are very particular in each country. So in France, should you be an independent worker? Should you create a company? Should you declare them this way, that way, or the other? So we're going to go through each statute to show the girls what might be best for their situation. I've also put together a nutritional, specifically for women, class, and I'm just waiting for all of that to come together so we can put that up and make it available.
It sounds like you are making the right strides to get more women to be the level that is somewhat equal to the man, as it should be, really. But you are giving the tools and you are fighting as well, advocating to make sure that it reaches sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, that's the objective, is really to give them all the tools to be at the top level, to be performant. It's not easy when you just get an association going, because the riders, they've heard about the men's league, they haven't heard about ours. So we're getting it up and running, and we're also involved with the CPA women. So, we work with them on quite a bit of races as well for security measures, extreme weather protocol and stuff like that.
That's so necessary, so that you have safe working conditions, you know your rights, and you feel safe as well, and you can enjoy cycling at all levels. I mean, this also touches upon something that you mentioned in the past, which again reflects so much of your personality from the research I've done, but also what you are telling me now, which reads like this: you are the CEO of your own destiny. If you want something bad enough, you can control how you get there. So it kind of encapsulates in some way your spirit, but don't let me put words in your mouth. But that's how you come across.
Yeah. That kind of sums it up.
I wanted to understand, because looking at your sporting career, after retiring from your sporting career, were there any specific lessons that cycling gave you and that you have applied to co-founding the association or co-founding your cycling brand? Any lessons that you can share?
Never give up. There is something I often say, is as cliche as it might sound, but where there's a will, there's a way. If you know something needs to be done, then it's up to you to find the way to get it done. And throughout the 30 years that I've been riding a bike, or the 15 that I raced, we were always dressed in men's clothing because nothing existed for women. And it was, there were times where it was really painful. I mean, because shorts were made for a physique that was straight, didn't take into account a woman's anatomy with curves, and and the clothes weren't very good looking. I mean, they weren't sexy, and women like style. So, I have worked quite hard with a few people. We have a designer from Chanel working with us, and she works with Chanel, but she also has her own brand and is helping us design clothes. And for the first time ever, I've been wearing chamois that are made for women and that take a woman's body into consideration, using something that's called Curve Tech that really studies a woman's muscular movement. So that's been huge, but also just getting things done, just pushing for longer races for women, for later start times for nationals. I mean, I remember the first time I won French Road Nationals, we started at 8 a.m, which meant for me, I had to get up at 5 to eat to have enough time to digest and everything. And the mayor of the town we were racing in also happened to be the first French woman prime minister. So she was giving out the trophies. And I said, didn't it just crack you to have to get up at 500 to come and give us our awards? And she's like, well, I mean, I'm used to having to get up and having a busy schedule. And I said, well, if there's any way you can help us. I mean, I had to get up at 5 to eat. Some of the girls, maybe it was 4, some ate right before, but it makes for a really long day if you have any influence, on the system and can get us a later start. And I think it was soon after that we started having 10 o'clock starts, which made a huge difference. I mean, a lot of little things add up. And now, finally the time trial are the same distance for men and women as they will be in the Olympics. The road race is still different distances. The men are still getting their heads around the fact that women can race 180K, and some women don't necessarily want to. I mean, 150 is fine, but it doesn't have to be 80 or 100K. That's not, the maximum. Next year, the Tour de France will be up to 9 days, and maybe it'll plateau off at 10 for a few years to see how things go. But they definitely need to get over their fear of adding, more climbing. Even after the success of the women in the Tourmalet last year, one of the organizers came up to me and said, yeah, when you came to see us about the tour, you said keep giving them 3,000 to 4,000 meters. But look, the last rider was 30 minutes down. I'm like, dude, the men have been racing the tour for 40 years and the last rider is way more than 40 minutes down. And yes, it's a longer event, longer stages, but still, I mean, it's the same. I mean, when you see a race, like the Tour de France or Giro this year, totally dominated by one rider, they used to bitch and moan when that happened in the women's races and saying, oh, it wasn't fun, it wasn't exciting because only one racer dominated. Well, yeah, I mean, frankly, I didn't watch much of the Tour this year. I was happy that it was Pogacar and I love watching him race, but I just didn't find it all that exciting. Whereas the women's race, I think, will be a lot different.
There's so much more energy from watching the women's races, and especially with the Tour de France Femme, there's more visibility, there's more energy. The women, the way they come across, and how they race, and how they speak in their own social media channels. It's just so more dynamic than the men, and that's very exciting, and creates huge growth possibilities, as is already growing. So you mentioned the brand, the co-founder Jelenew. Is there a story behind the brand?
I mean, in 90, I think it was 94 when I won my second time winning French Road Nationals. I was dreaming of having something other than black lycra shorts. And I had a pair of running shorts that were made by a brand called Dolphin. It was Dolfin. And it was the material was stretch, but it was a printed fabric. I don't know exactly what it was. It wasn't lycra, but it was really comfortable to wear. And I lived in Brittany at the time, so I found some women who worked with lace, and I cut panels on the side and put lace in the panels instead, so you could see through. You could see my leg through the panels, and it was a white material with purple orchids printed on it, and so it was pretty cool. I mean, it was totally different than anything. And I raced with that, and I ended up getting a sunburn through the lace, so I had these little flower sunburn patterns, which were kind of funny. And then a company came to me years later out of Portugal and asked if I wanted to do a line with lace, and I was like, yeah. So we tried something, and it didn't take off the way I wanted it to, because the social networks still weren't doing their breakthrough. Instagram and all that hadn't happened yet. And then with with this company, there was something that was going on overseas, and then they were working with a designer, a young designer named Christelle Cochet, who's out of the east of France, and she used to play handball, and she was one of the first designers to create a pair of shorts and tank top for women soccer players. And in the beginning, the women kind of laughed. They were like, "Oh, yeah, it's just a pair of shorts and a tank top." But when they wore them, they were like, "Oh, we'll never go back. This makes a huge difference for us." So this company was working with her, and then they came to me to see if we could get something going in cycling. And that's how we co-created the brand. We just said, yeah, there's a lot to do in cycling. I mean, we could revolutionize the way clothing works in the sport and just make something stylish, that's functional, that looks good, and that's fun to wear, and just maybe let everybody put their own, thumbprint on the brand.
Something that I notice through my research is that there are quite a few collections with the designers, and the way the brand is positioned is as a luxury item. That is to bring the comfort, the functionality, and also the aesthetics from haute couture. Has this been like an ambition from the founding team to create something that is very rooted in the French culture of the haute couture?
Well, I think, this year with the Olympics, you've got LVMH, Louis Vuitton, who's sponsoring, one of France's number one cycling stars, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, who has a very high chance of medaling, if not winning, the Olympic mountain bike event, and who has also signed for Jumbo Visma, so she'll be riding on the road after the Olympics. They've been working with her for the last 2 years. That's already opened the doors. Just the tie-in between Chanel is also sponsoring a Dutch speed skater. So the women look good on bikes, but often they're not riding in comfortable, good-looking clothing. I mean, I still somewhere have my jerseys, Worlds and French national jerseys, that were like these big oversized, T-shirts that hang down to my knees. So when I hung them up last week, there was an expo on the Tour de France, and I loaned a few of my jerseys for the expo, and they're like, "Seriously, you guys wore that?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and we didn't know better. But and then it also, the fact that you're not riding in something comfortable. Today with Jelenew, we made a bib short that has a zipper in the back, so you don't have to undress to pee. You can stop, undo the zipper, and just pull the shorts down. There's enough elasticity, and they fit really well. So it just makes a huge change in our life as an athlete. When I go on 4 to 6 hour rides, which I still do, it's nice to have that option. And it just, it's comfort, not injuring yourself, because, there's still, I think, an issue that could be solved with saddles. I don't think the solution has been found yet to, for a proper woman's saddle. So if any engineers out there hear me, that's a project to take on, and I'd be happy to work with them on that. But it's just, I think right now it's possible that we have it all wrong. Maybe the saddles need to be backwards or upside down. I don't know, but there's definitely something that's not working for us.
I'm sure there are smart people on the case.
Yeah,
finding solutions to solve all those issues. But it is interesting that how sport evolves so quickly, and when brands start listening to different voices, whether it's women or ethnic minorities, and they start listening to what they want and what they need to be more comfortable, to take up cycling, they start creating better products. They started creating better experiences for people that just want to go out and ride, or people that want to take it a step up and become a professional athlete. So it's important when you have, like yourself, the experience, and you can bring it to then the everyday enthusiast that can feel good, look good, and ride comfortably on the bike. So you have been a strong advocate for women cycling and epilepsy awareness. I'm curious now, as you have established like a charity ride to raise funds for epilepsy. You have started sports for therapy to get more children that have epilepsy to get into sports. What drives you to continue to advocate, to get more people into sport that have epilepsy?
The reasons or the drive, I think basically, in the beginning when the neurologist told me I shouldn't do sport, it was like, watch me, I'm going to. So it made me want to do just the opposite. And once I started, I think I was just getting that endorphin high from cycling, that feel good factor. And I wanted to see how far I could push myself. Maybe if I didn't have epilepsy, I wouldn't have pushed myself as far and I never would have started riding a bike or won a bike race. But I know that it helped me better manage the seizures. I mean, I've already gone 2 years. This is the longest stretch in a while that I've gone without having a seizure. So, I did a lot of research and testing on myself, on nutrition. I stopped gluten. I stopped dairy. I went vegan. I mean, I made a lot of changes to see what worked the best.
Yeah.
For the 14 years we organized the fund ride, the idea was there's 2 schools in France that are dedicated to children who have epilepsy. There's one in Brittany and there's one outside of Toulouse. So since we were close to the one outside of Toulouse, we raised money to build them a gym that was specific to the kids who have epilepsy. So it took us 14 years and we inaugurated the opening of the gym in November. And that was just amazing because now these kids have a secure atmosphere to practice sports in, and they can also compete with other schools who have the same disability as them. So I think for me, sport has really helped me manage, epilepsy and maybe manage the medication side, because the medications aren't always fun to take. I mean, they tend to make you really tired, really drowsy. They can have an impact on your personality, and that's never fun.
No.
It's just been important. And it's also been important for me there's 57 different types of epilepsy. So there are some kids who don't have a severe form of epilepsy, but they do have recurring seizures. And I met a kid last year who won his age group in acrobatic skiing, but the federation, and he wanted to go to a specialized school so he could have, hours off to train. And they didn't want to give him his license because of the epilepsy. So I went to bat and spoke to the neurologists and different people and tried to help, his parents, and did a few Zoom calls with him to, kind of try to transmit the never give up attitude. And he was able to compete again last winter. I need to check in with them to see where he's at now. Well, there was a young girl who wanted to do triathlons, and another girl whose dream was to become a nurse, but she wasn't allowed to pass the exam at first because she had epilepsy, but she did it anyway, and now she's a nurse. So, I hate to see someone's dream being shattered because of epilepsy. If it's a manageable form, which, varies with everybody, then I think being able to pursue your dream is really important. The main thing for me was knowing I had an intuition when I was going to have a seizure that would usually come on 2 to 4 hours before a seizure. So I knew that I was going to have one. I gave me enough time to put myself in security, or to take something that would kind of calm my brain down so I wouldn't have a seizure. That also meant that day was pretty much shot, that I, would have to stay in my bedroom or just in the house and in a secure place. But, and not everyone has that luck. Because some epilepsy is drop seizures. They don't see it coming and it's like, wham, somebody's hit you, on the head. So no, I really felt it was important to share my experience. And I just think sport is one of the best medications, for a lot of different ailments that we can use.
Yeah. I mean, it also brings to the fact that there are so many people with a huge potential. And then, like you said, a key example is you here. You have managed the best you can with epilepsy. And there are many other people that also have been told, no, you can't do sports. No, you can't be a nurse.
Yeah.
But for one reason or for another, they didn't have the tenacity that you have, or had someone fighting their corner. So sharing your story, giving them the tools, and just providing a bit of reassurance goes a long way of giving them the confidence. There's so many opportunities that can be
missed.
Left by the wayside just because someone tells you can't do it, which is unfortunate. We come back to what you said earlier on. Is like, you are your own CEO. You control your destiny. You have balanced cycling career. Now you're balancing kind of an entrepreneurial journey. I mean, you also had to kind of fight back through suffering through epilepsy. What have been for you the biggest challenges that you faced, and like how you overcome them?
I mean, I've had a few major challenges, in the last few years as well. I mean, I worked for a company that ended up being managed before I worked with the people from Jelenew, I worked with another company and the people turned out to be very toxic, very negative, and it was a really big blow because I put a lot of energy, a lot of effort into making things work, and it was also for women's sports, so that was a huge disappointment. But with each downfall, there's a step forward. There's something you can learn, and I'd say every step back is two steps forward in a way. But as difficult as it is at the time, and as painful as it can be, it gives you that much more strength, to move forward. The epilepsy, what was difficult for me was waking up and reconnecting after a seizure to see people's faces, and they were like, what just happened? And who are you? I mean, we don't know this person. We don't know this side of you. And it's like, well, it's a whole package, take it or leave it. And there were some people who left it. I mean, I do have people who thought, I was possessed or whatever. I mean, I was like, yeah, I am possessed. I know that. That's also what drives me. But people can be very different, and a seizure is really a scary thing to see. I mean, I scream, my eyes do, I think they go this way. It's a thing. You're not in your own body. You're not in possession of your own body. And then afterwards, it's like the old switchboard operators, trying to connect the A to the A and the B to the B, and it takes a long time. And people will ask me a question, and it'll be the sixth or seventh time that they ask me the same question that I finally snap out of it. And I'm like, right, yeah, okay. My name is Marion, and I'm here. But it's I'm sure it's not an easy thing to witness. So yeah, it's probably one of my better tools is humor. Just that takes you further than almost anything, and it can turn a dramatic event into something a little bit more pleasant to deal with.
Yeah. I've noticed your sense of humor and wittiness is quite good.
Thanks. Well,
I mean, with having setbacks, I think it's unfortunate, but is also important in a journey, wherever journey you are in, because it allows you to look at them and see them as potential for learnings, and rather than see it as a failure, see it as a learning that you can, okay, what can I take from here and use it to your next adventure, to your next challenge, your next business enterprise, whatever it is.
I think overall we learn more from our losses than we do from our wins. If everybody won every bike race they entered, they wouldn't learn or get the hunger to go further. I mean, if Pogačar hadn't lost the 2 Tour de France's last year and the year before, wouldn't be as hungry as he was this year and at the Giro. And Marianne Vos has always bounced back from various setbacks. And Demi Vollering started the season without a win, and then all of a sudden, boom, at the Vuelta, she finally broke through. But she never gave up. I mean, there's always something that pushes you forward. I mean, and people this year have come. I mean, even Vanguard came, from a horrific crash to come in second. I mean, Remco as well. I mean, and the women too. I mean, Elisa Balsamo, I think, is still going to be able to race the Olympics despite breaking her jaw and then has crashing again late in the season. I mean, there's, with the bikes getting faster and lighter, and something is going on. People are taking more risks, going faster, so crashes are more of an issue.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a girl or a young woman wanting to start professional racing, or a woman that is working in the cycling industry? What advice would you give to them?
Well, really, I mean, if what can stop you? What's going to stop you from living your dream? If you want something bad enough, if you've dreamed it, you've thought about it, the next step is developing the strategy on how to get there, and that's become easier with age because there's more tools to get information than there was before. If what's the only thing that stops you from realizing a dream is yourself. So, then it's all about making things happen.
Very good.
And I would definitely encourage more women to be mechanics, to be managers, presidents of federations. I mean, that's still something we're lacking. I was really disappointed this year in Paris-Roubaix. Last year, there were 3 women directors sportifs. This year, there were none.
Wow.
Even Anna van der Breggen wasn't DS this year. She wasn't there. I think she was getting ready for another stage race. But yeah, I find that disappointing that there aren't as many women managers or DSs, and not sure why that is. I mean, I know I hate driving, so I just don't have the desire to be DS anymore because of all the driving involved and just long hours in a car. Just not my cup of tea. I would, I definitely love working with the riders and managing them and stuff like that, but long hours in a car is just not something I want to put my time into.
Yeah, for sure. You have been already a race director?
Yeah, I've been a race director, manager, sports director. So yeah.
You already done it?
Been there, seen it, done it. I was DS for a lot of men's teams and then coached B-Bucks, a professional men's team. It was a team that Thomas Vogler and Pierre Roland rode for. So that was a really cool experience. I worked with the New Zealand national team. They were based in France for a while, so that was good fun. And then, coached a few pro elite riders, men and women. Yeah.
So there's always a question that kind of brings back to the essence of all of the conversations, which is the following, which I ask every guest that comes on the podcast. What does success look like to you?
Success, like happiness, lucidity, being able to take a step back and not suffer from comparison or jealousy or any sort of kind of painful negativity. Success isn't just about winning. It's also, for me, success comes being able to motivate people. Sunday, I took 8 women out for a ride. 3 hadn't ridden in years. I mean, one of them was on her son's bike. 3 of them were in tennis shoes. And we rode 72 kilometers and they loved it. So they'll be back. And that to me was success. I motivated them to get out and ride, have a good time. And we shared a coffee afterwards and they were like, la, 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 la. So that was really cool. I mean, that to me is success. And that's what I enjoyed most about coaching, was changing someone's attitude about, about even using the gym to improve their sport. I mean, a lot of people had this idea that, the gym was just lifting weights and it was going to be boring and da-da-da. Yeah. It doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. And the beauty of it, you can see the progress every day. It's very tangible. Whether you're doing a workout in the gym or going for a bike ride, is the same. So we come to the point of the podcast where every guest leaves a question to my next guest, not knowing who they are. So the question that was left for you is the following. Is there a skill you have always wanted to learn but never got a chance to learn?
I think I could answer that with several ways. One is that if I knew when I raced what I know today, and in particular about women's nutrition, women's cycles, how to use your cycle to improve, your activity, I would have probably had a much different career. A skill that I have now that I didn't have then was really mastering calm in the eye of the storm. When I raced world championships, I knew when I was going to win. It was just easy. I knew I had put in the work and it was just a ride around the park and, that was it. All was good. But when I got to the Olympics, it was a whole nother world. It was interplanetary. It was a major stress that I wasn't able to link the fun I had in training to the event. I wasn't able to bring out that same tenacity in the final. Right. And today I can do that. So it was just at that time learning that skill. And I think just balancing everything out too. I mean, the medication you have to take for epilepsy can be pretty strong. And that a huge obstacle for me too, was just constantly balancing the side effects, whether it was from having bouts of anemia, because it inhibits your absorption of folic acid, which could put you into anemia. So there was always checks and balances. But, having gone through all of that today, I have those skills. But yeah, back then I was still in the learning process.
For sure. Yeah, that's... The power of hindsight is always...
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too about winning. Winning is great, but you don't learn from winning. you learn from losing, because you rewind the video, you look at it, I made a mistake there. I mean, if you won all the time, it might not be as fun in a way, you wouldn't get that same high.
There is a saying that I heard from football: the bad players make great managers.
Yeah. We were talking about that yesterday with someone, about how a lot of coaches were not great athletes, but they developed into better and there's a saying too, a French saying, about how those who don't become great players or business people, whatever it is that they're trying to become great teachers. Or if they don't make it in what they're after, they become teachers. So if they don't become a great athlete, they become a great coach. If they don't become a great businessman, they become a professor.
Yeah.
So
very
that's
good.
something.
That's
along
another
those
way
lines.
of putting it. Yeah, very good.
Okay, so now you're going to ask me a question to ask someone else.
Well, I mean, take it away.
Wow.
Take it away.
It's funny because it's used a lot of visualization during my career. I remember there were points in my career where music was a big deal. Just you have, there's a lot of people in your head when you're competing, and talking to those people and making amends with them. That's a huge element in sports. But I'm just trying to think, because the generation that's coming now and later might not have anything to do with my generation. I almost feel like what I'm talking about now is almost old school. I think the preparations now are so much different. Yeah, I guess my question for someone would really be in the lines of, do they meet the people in their head? Do they have those conversations, the same conversations I did with the people in their head? And what is the best and worst conversation that they've had with the people in their head?
Oh, that's a powerful question. I'll answer it myself, because it's a very deep question. It's a very deep question. With that, Marion, it has been a pleasure to get to know you, and
thank you.
Having you share your journey, the lessons you learned along the way, and really how inspiring you are as an athlete, but also as a person, really. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, and I look forward to hearing this and being able to share it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Ride Success. Marion's was such a great guest. Her commitment to empowering women athletes highlights the impact she continues to make in the sports community. I hope Marion's insights and experience have inspired you as much as they have inspired me. And stay tuned to next week's episode, where I speak with Celine Jaeger. She's a renowned journalist, athlete, and advocate, and a mentor whose work has significantly shaped the gravel cycling community. She's known as the Fit Chick from Bicycling magazine. Celine has authored numerous books and articles, inspiring countless cyclists to explore gravel cycling. Her advocacy, particularly for women over 40 going through menopause, has broken barriers and created inclusive opportunities in the sport and in cycling. One last request before you go: please leave us a review, rate the show, because these will continue to bring you original content from Ride Success. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just use my name, Pedro Couto Lopez. Thank you for listening, and write your own success.